Welcome everyone to our Monday night shiur, the 11th of Adar. The 11th of Adar. Shnichnas Adar Marvim B'Simcha. In approximately 3 days, it's going to be Purim. But before Hashem gave us this crazy and amazing and beautiful and awesome light called Purim, He gave us a Hilula of one of the greatest Sephardi tzaddikim. When I say greatest, I'm talking about he's one of the authorities for the Sephardic Jews. The authorities. I said this in my lectures before. We Sephardim only have a couple of Marans. By Ashkenazim, our brothers, we love them. Everybody's Maran. Everyone who has a hat, Maran. Maran v'Rabbanan. Savri Maran. For them, everything is Maran. Maran, Maran, Maran. Rosh Yeshiva, Rosh Kabahag. Everything. Sephardim, we're Chalacham. You know, we'd like to take it. Every title for us, Basela. It weighs. So by the Sephardim, we only have three Marans. First is the one and only Maran HaShulchan Aruch,
Yosef Karo.
Rav Yosef Karo. Second is Maran Chida. Maran Chida. And the third is Maran Ovadia Yosef. What's the connection between all three? All three of them have the name Yosef. Yosef Karo, or Yosef Karo, Yosef Hayim, the Chida of Yosef Hayim David Azulay, and Rav Ovadia Yosef. That's the only ones that we've known as Maran. Yosef hu Ashalit al Haaretz, hu HaMashbir L'Kol HaMa'aretz. The name Yosef has a very powerful sigula in it. Very powerful. One of the greatest Amoraim inside the Gemara was Rav Yosef Bar Chiya. Rav Yosef Bar Chiya, the Gemara says about him, when he got to the age of 60, he threw a party. 60 years old. You know this story. Yeah. When he got to the age of 60, he threw a party. Why would you throw a party at the age of 60? Anyone want to take a guess? Why? What's 60? What's so special about 60?
After 60, you get karet.
You get karet or you pass karet?
You
pass karet. Once you reach the age of 60, you pass the mitah of karet.
Still applies today?
Of course. Once a person hits the age of 60, he passed the age of karet, it's worth to throw a party. The Gemara, the Amoraim threw a party when they were 60 years old. There's two karets, 50 years old and 60 years old. So the Chachamim used to throw two birthday parties, one at 50 and one at 60. So Rav Yosef, he threw a party when he was 60 years old. And the Chachamim asked a question, it's not good to throw parties. It's not good, Ayin Hara. Rav Steinman, Zichrono Levracha, used to say, a lot of people can't get pregnant after they get married is because there was a lot of Ayin Hara
on the wedding night.
In the wedding. I said this to my wife once. She's like, what are you, crazy? Everyone over there is your loved one. They're dancing with you. They're happy with you. I said, if you look at the Nosach of Hatarat Nedarim Uklalot, what does it say over there? Ayin Hara de Soni'im. The Ayin Hara, you've said it enough in this shul that you probably know it by heart. Ayin Hara de Ohavim. There's Ayin Hara also of Ohavim. Person has to be careful. I want to tell you guys a crazy story while we're already on this topic. Also, sometimes I always used to be upset at people when they donate this shiur. For example, this shiur right now is donated anonymously for their refuah shlema of the donor's child and themselves. And I was always very upset. Like when a person donates a mitzvah,
say a name.
He doesn't say a name. Give people the koach to give. I was always upset at people, but I always respect people's wishes. I like to respect people's wishes. But deep inside, I said to myself, you should say your name. When you give, it's good to say. You give other people power to do that too. This past week, I should have opened my eyes. I got a small clip of a lecture. Usually right away I delete these things. What happened to me? I don't know. I happened to open it. Why did I open it? It says over there, shiur from Rav Ovadia Yosef. You see the guy in the picture over there? He's a young guy, like my age. This happens to be Rav Ovadia Yosef's grandson. Rav Ovadia Yosef has like 7 grandkids, all Ovadia Yosef. Wow. Like this, he has from every son couple of Ovadia Yosef. So you don't know who's who and who's when.
Rav Yaakov's son.
Rav Yaakov's son. This one I'm talking about is Rav Yaakov's son.
Amazing.
One of the greatest. So he was saying, shiur, he says, it's not good always to say your name and to do a Sudat Hodaya in public. It's not good. Ayin Hara is why. There was one big rabbi, if he would have been alive today, he would have been around 60, 70 years old, he would have been the greatest Gadol Hador. He passed away in his mid-30s, early 40s, from cancer, lo aleinu, lo alam Yisrael. His name was Rav Levi. He was a very big chacham. Even Rav Ovadia Yosef The Rav Yosef used to say that if this rabbi would have been by the Ashkenazim, they would have made him Rosh HaYeshiva. Rav Moshe Levi, his name was. Student of Rav Mazuz. He had stage 4 cancer. Rav Moshe Levi. Stage 4 is cancer. And once you get to stage 4, you're not coming out. And he got out of it. He was healed from this machala of sartan. Lo aleinu. His students, he had a lot of students in Klal Yisrael. They were so happy for him, so happy. They threw this huge Sudat Hodaya, huge, in Cholon. Huge Sudat Hodaya. 1 week later, he gets the whole thing back again and he passes away from it. Wow. So sometimes it's not good always to publicize too much what happens to you. And whose chidush does he bring this in the name of? Of Yisrael Mirozhin, the Rozhiner Rebbe. One of the students of the Baal Shem Tov. Yisrael Mirozhin was one of the greatest Hasidim. So sometimes it's not always good to publicize things. So therefore the person who gave the shiur, anonymously I said, Baruch Hashem, sometimes it's not good to say what you're doing, the mitzvot, this and that. But the Gemara says a story about a woman. She had a special place in Gehenom. Wow. And Masechet Sanhedrin brings this story. She was by the door of Gehenom, and all the time in Gehenom, she used to hear the doorknob turn. All the time, in her ear, doorknob. So the Rashi brings down over there, how come she merited to this Gehenom? I guess merited, compared to the other parts. Masechet Gehenom brings much more interesting parts of Gehenom. So he says over there, because every time she used to make a good deed, she's telling her, you know what I did yesterday? I give so-and-so tzedakah. She used to fast. The next day she'd be like, oh, I fasted yesterday. It was such a good fast. The best fast. I ate the cold water I had after the cup of coffee. Oh my God. It was the best. For that, you don't go to Gan Eden. For that, you go to Gehenom. Whatever Gehenom is, for that, you go to Gehenom.
Why the doorknob?
Why the doorknob? Because she likes to hear people say to her, Kol hakavod, yafeh asid, very good job. Like this, you're going to always hear the door of Gehenom opening and closing in her ear, like this. Therefore, it's not always good to ask for the applause. It's not always good. I knew a guy, he always used to like to look for the applause. One time he got such an applause, he fell down and he broke his feet right after the applause. He tripped on the stairs, boom, he broke his feet on the spot. Not from the applause, from the Einayim. You have to be careful. So back to what we were saying before with Maran Chida. By the Sfaradim we have three main Marans. Some also include Maran Ben Ishchai. Also his name is what? Yosef Haim. What's this? Yosef was Shalit. Yosef is a price for Rav Yosef in the Gemara used to say, if it wasn't, so the Chachamim used to tell him, because why are you making a birthday party? Besides for the karet. So he used to say, if it wasn't for the Torah, that I learned, there's many Yosefs in the marketplace. There's many Yosefs going around in this world. There's many Shaloms going around. There's many Gavriels walking around. There's many Daniels and Ariels. But what makes you different than anybody else is the Torah. That Hashem that gave you the Torah HaKedoshah. Hashem that gave you the Torah HaKedoshah. So therefore, tonight is a very big light. Tonight is a big light in this world. And right now it's shining inside this world right now, a very big or. Hachana to Purim. You should know one thing. Every holiday, 3 days before, already the light of that holiday is beginning to shine. How do we know that? Anyone get to give a guess? From Shavuot, right? What did God tell Moshe Rabbeinu in Shavuot? Heyu nechonim lishloshet yamim. Be ready 3 days. That means already 3 days prior, before the holiday, there's already an or. There's already a feeling in the air of the Chag. That feeling in the air is not just because we're all going shopping, buying Mishloach Mano. That feeling in the air comes from the Chag itself. That's the feeling in the air. When me and my wife got married, she used to tell me the holidays in America is not equal to the holidays in Israel. Over there, before Pesach, you know the Pesach rush is over there? I once took a test over there before Pesach. Why? What's going on over there in the religious communities over there? It's like over there, Aliyah Laregel, from store to store. Pesach, this, that, Hametz, kashering pots, kashering pans. It's not like over here. Today, people take the china like it's, they do in the restaurants. Oops, we broke up late. Like this is over here. Over there, they kosher everything. They only have one pair. Many religious families over there live below the kavaoni, below the poverty line. So they don't have a set for Pesach, set for their chametz. They have one set and they have to kosher. Some things you cannot kosher, some things you could kosher. We over here were spoiled. We don't learn the halachot of kashering things. We have to learn the halachot of this. This is part of the halachot. This is part of it's part of learning Torah. You have to know how to kasher things. How to kasher your kitchen. How to kasher your pots. How to kasher your pans. Some day, I don't remember, some lady, she texts me. She says, I mixed my meat spoons with my milk spoons, okay? Do I have to put them in the mikveh? I said, what? You mix your... What does the mikveh have to do with kashering forks and spoons, for the love of God? Mikveh is when you buy something from the goy, and kashering is kashering. What's the connection? We have this thing in our head, what we saw it from our parents. See how important it is what we do in front of our kids? For us, or I was teaching somebody hagalat kelim. What's irui mikli rishon? What's hagala? What do you need to do in the fire? What's libun kal? What's libun chamur? There are some things you have to put mamash under the fire. So I was telling one person, they were asking me, what do we got to do this? What do we got to do that? How do we kasher this? How do we kasher that? Old timer Bukhari. She's like, oh yeah, Rabbi, don't worry. We do hagala. She said hagala so many times. I said something's fishy over here. She doesn't know what hagala means, for sure, 100%. So I told her, what's hagala? She said, we take the kettle and we spill from the kettle the hot water onto the plates and on the pots. I'm like, that's not hagalat kelim. Who taught us? That's what we used to do in Bukhara. Bukhara, but that's not hagalat kelim. That's irui. Irui kashers certain things. Hagalat kashers certain things. You can't mix the two. That's why it's important to ask a Rav. If you don't trust this Rav, go to a different Rav. Not this Rav, go to the next Rav. But at least you go to an orthodox, normal Rav with a smicha. He was in Kollel, he learned Torah. Not everything for him is, bedil ve'avor, mutar, next, like he's doing stamps in a post office. Next, coronavirus. No, that's not a word. You have to go to a person who knows the halakha inside, and he's machmir. Chumrah is a sign that a person is medagdeg b'mitzvot. Chumrah is not a sign that a person is fanatic. If a person is at work, he's sure to get to work how many minutes before the job? 5 minutes before the job. Why come 30 seconds before? He's machmir. 5 minutes. How come we're not... A person who's machmir in mitzvot, what does it mean? That the mitzvah is what? It's important to him. So why do we look at people who are machmir like fanatics? Why do we look at them like fanatics? Maybe you're the fanatic in the other way. He's not. He's preparing his house in Gan Eden. You prepared your house b'olam hazeh. But he's preparing his house for olam shekulo aruch. So how come you look at him as the extremist? Why?
We're jealous.
We're not jealous. We're ignorant. We're ignorant. We're ignorant because we grew up in a way where whatever we saw our parents do is kadosh, 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 which is good. Therefore, the responsibility should be on us to make the things correct in front of our children. And one of the most important things, you should never be shy to call a Rav to ask him for halakha. Many times people ask me halakha, I don't know. I ask for them the Rav, what's the halakha? You shouldn't be afraid to ask a Rav halakha. That's the Rinah Shel Torah. Anywho, so back to the light of the Torah. The light of Purim. So this Chacham, if we could call him a Chacham even, Maran. Maran means Matayim Rabbanim Nismach. He had smicha from 200 rabbis. We only give this title to one in a generation rabbi. One in a generation, maybe one in a couple of generations. The Chida, I want to tell you a little bit about him before I'm going to read you some stuff from his book. I have a book over here, it's printed after 800 years. One of his books. I'm going to read you some nice sigulot from here. We're Am Sigula, am I right or wrong? We just read it 2 weeks ago in the parasha. So it says, Maran Chida, he had a Rebbe. A Rebbe. You know who his Rebbe was? The Orach Chaim HaKadosh. Look at me, Michal. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh was his Rebbe. When the Chida was a young man, he went to the Talmud Torah of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. Do you know what the Orach Chaim HaKadosh was? You know what a Saraf is? A living angel. A Saraf is the highest angel. Only a Chayot is higher than the Serafim. Rabbi Chaim ben Atad, or Chaim was a Saraf. He was a fire. He died without children. His Talmidim were his children. He died at the age of 36, 37, because he knew when he was going to pass away, by the way. He knew when he was going to pass away. That Yom Kippur, when he made the Ne'ilah, he saw from the Ne'ilah that he was going to pass away that year, and he did. He passed away that year, Tammuz. The Orach Chaim is buried right next to the Rashash, Rabbeinu Shalom Sharabi. The Chida grew up in the Rashash's yeshiva. After the Or HaChaim passed away, Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, which is one of the highest Mekubalim that ever lived, Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, he was the tzaddik who jumped out of the fifth floor not to be with the Goya. And he made a neder while he was flying off the fifth floor. If I survive, I'm going to Eretz Yisrael. Like this, he went to the fifth floor. He was Temani, young Temani boy. He was an orphan.
It happened in Taiman?
In Taiman. He went to the lady. He's like, I want to buy from you the trinkets, whatever he was selling over there. She brought him up. She said, like Yosef HaTzadik. She's like, Shichvayimi. You know, I'm going to give you, don't worry, Kesef, Zahav. He said, give me a second, let me refresh. He goes to the bathroom. Back then the bathroom was on the roof. He opens the window and he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if I jump and survive, I'm going to Eretz Yisrael. If not, over here shall be my death. He opens the window, he jumps. Survives, he runs away to Eretz Yisrael. He ran away to Eretz Yisrael, he survived, he ran away to Eretz Yisrael, that's it, finito. Over there in Eretz Yisrael, he became a shamish. You know what a shamish is? He cleaned the floors, washed the floor. He used to serve tea to the Mekubalim. He wants a cup of tea, cup of chai, cup of cafe, cup of this, cup of that. From that, he became the son-in-law, the domot of the head Mekubal, and from there he became the greatest Mekubal that ever lived. One of the greatest, I'm sorry. To the point where the Sadeh HaKadosh, the Sadeh, Rabbi Shaul Chaim Dwek HaKohen says, he was a Gilgul of the Ari HaKadosh. The Rashash, Rabbeinu Shalom Sharabi, but when he used to sign his name and his Etz HaChaim, you know what he used to write? His initials? Hashamash.
He kept his title.
The guy who used to
The
sing the
helper.
Shamash. People want to read the Shemesh, the sun. No, it's Hashamash. He used to sign his name Hashamash. He was humble. He used to sign his name Hashamash. The Chida grew up in the Rashash's yeshiva. The story goes, in that generation, there were 3 huge Mekubalim. The youngest, which was the Chida. Now, when the Chida was born, he was born early, 7 months. They thought he was a stillborn, a nefil. Back then, he didn't have incubator, shmincubator. Kid who was born 7 months, heart's not beating. His grandmother was a smart woman. She took the baby from the room. She bathed him in oil. She rubbed his body. She gave him a nice... The doctors do, they take the kid upside down, give him a nice couple of smacks, and boom, he started to... all the mucus came out and he started to breathe. If it wasn't for his grandma, we wouldn't have Maran Chida today. Wow. This is the Chida. Rabbeinu Chaim Yosef David. That's why he put the name Chaim Yosef David. Chaim first. He put Chaim. He should have a long life. Azulay. He did have children. The Chida, when he was a young boy, he was very into Kabbalah, very into Torah Hasod, into the mystical parts of the Torah, very into it. You could see who he was hanging out with, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, the Rashash. Don't forget, back then in Yerushalayim, there were great Talmudists.
What years is that?
The Ramcha, 1700s, mid-1700s, 1745, 1746. The Chida HaKadosh, the Chida, when he was a young boy, he was in his early 20s, the Rashash already saw his greatness in Torah. The Rashash had another student, and it's funny, this student has a very similar Hilula to the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, called Rav Chaim de la Rosa. Rav Chaim de la Rosa, one of the greatest Mekubalim. He was the Rashash's closest student. But the funny thing is, anything that he explains his Rebbe, we don't follow him. And I'm going to tell you why. The Rashash, the Chida, and Rabbi Chaim de la Rosa, they decided enough with the Galut. We want Mashiach now.
Chabad.
The Chabad didn't come up with this verse. They made it up first. They got it first. They just didn't copyright it. What can you do? In the bottom of Yeshivat Bet El, they still have this place. They dug a mikveh. Mikveh tahara. Over there, they used to eat chulin betahara. You listening to what I'm saying? They used to eat food in tahara. You could do that today, by the way, also. It's very hard to do that. You could eat food in purity. How do you eat food? No. Has nothing to do with you going to the mikveh. The food itself has to be pure. How do you have food that's pure?
You have to get maaser all through ma.
Dipping in the mikveh actually makes it tameh. Why? The halacha is, if food comes into contact with 7 liquids, it makes it susceptible to impurity. If the food doesn't come in contact with these 7 liquids, you're eating pure food. What are these 7 liquids? Let's see if I remember them.
Milk,
water,
Honey.
honey. Which kind of honey?
Raw.
Bees honey.
Bees honey specifically. What else?
Milk.
Blood, milk, oil. Which kind of
wine.
oil?
Olive oil.
Only olive oil.
Wine.
Wine. That's the last one.
Yeah.
Dude,
You said that.
Yeah.
You said that?
Yeah.
Kol hakavod. Usually people don't get the last one. Do. Tal.
You can't wash your
Tal.
vegetables?
What? You're tamemit. Tzadik. You're tamemit.
You could transfer your
So you
tummy.
can't contact these foods.
Right. Once the food comes into contact with water, and then I touch it, I'm tamemit.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
It comes tamemit, that food. But if the food never gets into contact with liquids, these 7 liquids, let's say I make my bread in apple juice, not with water. That means I could eat my bread b'tahara.
Which means you don't have to wash hands?
No, I can wash my hands, but the food itself is tahor. I still have to be tahor myself, but the food in the Beit HaMikdash's time, for example, B'mra b'yameinu.
Amen.
We're gonna have to follow these laws. We're gonna have to be careful. Tell our wives, you cannot make the food like this. You gotta make the food like that. I gotta go to the Beit HaMikdash today. I gotta bring a korban. I could be tameh. You could be tameh. The food cannot be. If the food comes into contact with water, and then let's say your wife is a nida, and she touched the food. Now the food is tameh nida.
Like transferred.
It transferred. It transferred. Tumat transferred. Only if it comes into contact with these 7 liquids.
A woman wanting
What
to
if
cook
it comes
if she
into
wasn't
contact
eating
with
that?
your regular husband?
Yeah. She usually not. Usually not.
How about if she had gloves on?
Doesn't make a difference because the gloves become tameh from her, and then the food transmits. The gloves transmit the tum'ah to the food because the food now becomes susceptible to tum'ah by coming into contact with these 7 liquids.
Boiled water is no problem, right?
What?
Boiled water is no problem.
Of course, there's a problem.
Water is water.
Boiled water is not a problem.
What are you talking about? All liquids make the food susceptible to tum'ah.
So how are we allowed to eat pickles?
Pickles is in the water.
I'm not sure you guys understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's not something you can't eat.
That means the person preparing it would have to be tahor.
You could eat food that's tameh.
I know that, but I thought.
But
boiled water wasn't one of them.
once food comes into contact with any of these 7 liquids in any form, salted water, pickled water, these foods now are susceptible. They're contagious. They can become contagious. You cannot.
So you'd wash if the tree there's a tree and it rains.
You're asking a good question now. So if I want to give you guys a class on Tumah v'Tahara, which is one of my favorite things, we could go on forever. So just to answer your question, just so you know that I'm not, with you right now, anything that's connected to the ground is tahor. It's Mother Earth.
Which is why you don't have to.
It's Mother Earth. Why is the mikveh specifically have to be connected to the ground? Well, I can have a portable mikveh on 4 wheels. Because if it's not connected to the ground, that liquid itself could take your tumah. We'll take your tumah, and it's tumah forever. What's the point of dipping in that water now?
That's why you're not allowed to be in a pool.
That's why if people have, I take a tank. To make this tank into a mikveh now, I have to break it from a kli. I gotta take away the name of a kli from it. I gotta make a hole in it, then plaster the hole, then drill it into the ground. I could make you a mikveh, by the way, a portable mikveh, but you gotta drill it into the ground. You understand what I'm saying? That's why you see mikvehs on the 2nd floor. How was that a mikveh, right? Because the mikveh is connected to the ground, which is connected to the building, which is connected to the earth. You understand? If a woman sees nida on the toilet, for example, she got up from the toilet, it's nida. She sees nida. You see tamer or tahor?
Tahor.
She's tahor.
She's connected to the
Because
ground.
she saw the blood on a thing that's connected to the ground. So as she right now, her status is tahor. There's many halachot, guys. I don't want to give you guys one halacha and one leg. I can't do this right now because don't take anything I say right now halacha lamaise.
Chida.
Back to the Chida. The Chida used to eat chulin b'tahara. He used to eat chulin b'tahara. And I'm just letting you know right now, it's very hard to do that. It's really hard not to make food in contact with these 7 liquids. So when Mashiach comes, we're going to have a huge course. Huge course. In fact, this is one of the things that the prophet Zechariah, when he was bringing the Jews back into the 2nd temple, God tells him, ask the Kohanim, do they remember the halachot? Do they remember the halachot? If you open Masechet Pesachim, Daf Lamed Vav, Lamed Hey,
Of course not.
And if no,
they knew. They knew. They reviewed the halachot inside the Gola. Remember, Kohanim are very zealous people. Throughout the whole Gemara has a nickname for Kohanim, Zrizim. Shusteri. They're very fast. They like to do like Phineas. They like to be very zaris, but that's also very dangerous because it also leads to anger. The Gemara says that Kohanim were able to kill somebody for making a mistake in the Beit HaMikdash. So it's very. Let's go back to the Chida because we got into a tangent. Let's get back to the point.
Rabbi, they want to meet Mashiach now.
Yes. The Maran Chida. Maran Chida with the Rashash, Rav Shalom Gadaev, they used to dip inside this mikveh and do something which I'm dying to teach you guys, but you guys are not ready for this yet. Called Yichudim.
Connection.
Which is?
Special ways of connecting God's name through certain letters in your mind. The Ari calls this higher than learning Torah. Higher than David, it's the highest thing. It's Keneged HaKeter. Mashiach now.
It's not
Alright?
for us observing the rabbi.
It's called Yichudim. What does the word Yichud mean? To make everything single. It's all really one. One day, put your hands down. They were making Yichudim. The Chida, the Rashash, and Rabbi Chaim de la Rosa making Yichudim to hasten the coming of the Mashiach, because this mitzvah brings up all the holy sparks. Thank you. And they hear a bat call. The Chida, the Rashash, and Rabbeinu, and Rabbi Chaim de la Rosa. Yes. They want to bring Mashiach, Michael, and they hear a bat call. Bat call is like an echo of Nevuah. It's an echo of Nevuah. And they said, the bat call said, your kavanah is accepted, but the time is not ripe. And because you try to hasten the time, there's a backlash now. Because when you try to do something, even when you do in technology, anything, when you try to do something too fast, there's always a backlash. All three of you, nigzera alechem mita.
What? Wait, what?
Death. The death penalty.
Early death penalty.
All three of you, death penalty. Early death. The Rashash was 52 years old at that time, and he passed away that year. Rabbi Chaim de la Rosa, which was considered his top student, who should have taken the yoke of the yeshiva, not only didn't he take the yoke of the yeshiva, we don't follow almost any of his halacha from the Rashash. He was his main student. For example, the Rashash writes in Rav Shalom that you shouldn't do kavanot in Sfirat HaOmer. But it's as if that page has been cut off. Cut off.
You mean this during the...
During Sfirat HaOmer, kavanot HaRashash, you should not do on Sfirat HaOmer.
For prayer.
Yes, for prayers, obviously. I'm talking about kavanot ha'ari, not kavanot of Yud Kei Vav Kei Ad Al Ad Yud. Rav Chaim de la Rosa said, I saw my Rebbe do it, and he retracted what he said. Till today, nobody follows Rav Chaim de la Rosa. All Mukubalim take a 50-day break from kavanot. If you come to our shul, for example, the rabbis, during the year, his Shmona Yisrael over here, you know, it's like his mincha of Shabbat. I don't know how this is possible. It's 10-15 minutes. But when it's time of the Omer time, it's like 10-15 seconds. You understand the difference? No, it's just lemashal. So, nobody follows Rav Chaim de la Rosa when it comes to the kavanot. And not only that, he became very poor. Ani marud miskeh. And what does it say in the Gemara? Ani chashuv kemet. The Chida took upon himself galut. And we know that galut is mechaperet ala mita. Instead of the death, he took upon himself galut. He didn't die early, but he died in the Gola. He died outside of Israel, in Italy of all places, Livorno. He passed away in Italy, in the Makoma of our dear Esav friends, Edom. He was buried over there. Now I'm going to tell you the story, how they brought his body back to Eretz Israel.
Serious story.
I'm happy that you guys are excited. Rabbi Chida, his bones were inside Livorno, or today known as Leghorn, Italy, for hundreds of years. 200 years, 250 years. One day, a young rabbi that was going to be one day the chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, one of the greatest chachamim that ever lived, the son of the Mikubal Elaki, Rabbi Salman Eliyahu, Rabbi Salman Eliyahu was accepted to Oxford University. He was an Iraqi Jew, accepted to Oxford University. He could speak like 7-8 languages. One day he was passing the Ben Ish Chai's yeshiva. He didn't know what Torah was. They were traditional. Kiddush on Shabbat, this, that.
No, he was Baal Tshuva.
He was about Tshuva. And he hears the Ben Ish Chai giving a shiur on Etz HaChaim of Salman Eliyahu. He goes inside the yeshiva and he's, he's academia, Oxford University, got accepted to. He goes like, what is this? Ein Sof Baruch Hu, Zah, no, Chasadim, Gvurot. What are you guys talking about over here? Ben Ish Chai says, stop. You're not allowed inside here. It says that there's one moment in your life where the spear hits the target, like it just hits straight at the target. It broke him when he heard that. Like, I'm not accepted to hear this barbaric kaviyachol limud? I'm not accepted? He started to go insane. He looked for every book in the planet just to open and just learn it. And he can't understand anything. He goes to the Ben Ish Chai's house, starts to beg him, teach me this, teach me. Ben Ish Chai said, I want to see you. He became Baal Tshuva. He told his uncles, I'm not going to Oxford University. On Shabbat, they were about to take a watermelon and pop it on his head. Pop it on his head. He said, I'm not going. I want to learn this. I don't know why. I have a hamshacha, pull towards it, desire. From that, the Ben Ish Chai accepted him, and he taught him everything. In the Torah Tasot, his mind opened up, but it still didn't open up completely. When he asked the Ben Ish Chai, give me a sigula to open up my mind in Limud Torah, he said, I'm going to give you a sigula. This sigula is going to open your mind to Torah. Sit at the edge of the door. Don't sit inside the shul, sit by the edge. When somebody over the age of 60 walks in, stand up. If you do that, it's going to open up your mind to Torah. He told Rav Salman Eliyahu. Rav Salman Eliyahu ended up emigrating to Israel. He asked the Ben Ish Chai before he left, give me a list of questions where I could know to ask, Mikubalim, to see who can I learn from. And the Ben Ish Chai gave him a list of questions. We have those list of questions today. We have them today. One of the questions was, where did the Rashash learn the matrix of the soul from in the works of the Ari? Where did he take that from the Kitvei Ariyaga? Where did the Rashash take the Kitvei Ariyaga? Almost nobody knows the answer to that question. Almost nobody knows. Would you believe it? Rav Salman Eliyahu became such a tzaddik. He wrote a perush on all the Etz HaChaim. All the Etz HaChaim. It was so holy, his perush. One day he comes to his library. The second half of all of his perush disappeared. Till today, nobody knows what happened to it. Mina Shamayim, he didn't want it to be mitgaleh. It just disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to it. He had perush on all 50 gates, 25 to 50, gone. Rav Salman Eliyahu's son was Rav Mordechai Eliyahu. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, he's going to be one day the chief rabbi. He was the chief. He was. I'm saying. I'm telling you in retrospect. Yeah, he was the chief rabbi of Israel. He was a big mikubal, big tzaddik. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, when he was a young boy, used to work in the Chevra Kadisha. Chevra Kadisha. Him, Rav Liniado, and Baba Chaki. You guys know who Baba Chaki is? You guys know his older brother, Baba Sadi. Baba Chaki was the younger brother. His name was Rabbi Yitzhak. He was the chief rabbi of Ramle. You know Ramle, right? Who doesn't know Ramle? We're Bukhari town. They was the Bukharlam and Arab town. Two together. So these three rabbis said, we're bringing the bones of the Chida back to Eretz Yisrael. Listen to this, Rabotai. When was this? This was at least a good 40 years ago.
Oh, not that long ago.
Not that long ago. This is a good 40 years ago.
Where are you buried?
Baslanut. They bring the body deteriorates over time, so they were able to fit the whole body of the Chida. By the way, this is a real picture of him. This is not a fake picture. This is a real picture drawn of the Chida.
It was Arabic?
No.
Sfaradi. His father was Sfaradi. His mother was Ashkenazia.
Where was he from?
His family was originally from Spain, then emigrated to Fez, Morocco, and from Fez they moved to Eretz Israel. His family was from Hebron. The Chida in the 18th century, about 250 years ago. So they brought his body to Eretz Israel. When they brought the body to Eretz Israel, now the halacha is you have to open up the box.
Right, to see, make sure there is something.
You have to put the bones
Same place.
in the right order. You gotta open up the box. You gotta rearrange it. Put the head in the front, the leg in the end, the hands, the right. Now you gotta be really good in anatomy physiology for this. It's not something simple over here, you know what I'm saying?
How was it not already like
Because they took the body out. Who knows, after 200 years, what the heck happened over there? Basically, the Rabbi Liniado and Baba Chaki, Baba Salih's brother over there, were shaking. You're going to open up the body of the Chida?
His body decomposed?
Yes.
Oh wow.
Only big tzaddikim don't decompose. Those are special tzaddikim that never felt jealousy in their life.
And he's not
Even the body of Yosef HaTzaddik decomposed.
Wow.
It says his bones, v'ta'al atzmotav, his bones went up from Mitzrayim. Even Yehuda, that's the brother of Yosef, it says his bones were shaking in the casket.
So who did only
They were not
There were
Jewish.
very few rabbis. No, the Torah calls it the kanubo. In their level, it was in their level.
Okay, he
But
was
still,
not.
they decomposed.
Like he was
Rabbi Chaim
Who?
Vital.
The Maran Chida?
Yosef was not jealous.
That's a deep.
It was considered jealousy. That's why he said the lashon hara about them. And his jealous, it was considered jealousy. His body did decompose. So the Maran Chida. Now the Rabbi Liniado and the Baba Chaki were shaking over there, like you're going to open up. There's stories that I've been saying when you open up the grave of a tzaddik, if you're not holy enough, you pass away that year. There was a rabbi. He's the writer of the song. Bar Yochai Nimshach Da'ashecha Hashem Imzazon Mechavecha Bar Yochai. You can't break the code of it. So the writer, who knows the writer of the song? Who knows the writer?
Every time you say that.
Who knows the answer? Who knows the answer? Nah.
The smallest rabbi.
Rabbi Shimon Lavi. Rabbi Shimon Lavi, he was Tunisian. I'm sorry, not Tunisian, Libyan. They just made, Omar Gaddafi. He was Libyan. He wrote this song. He also wrote a Pirush in the Zohar. They buried him. After a while, the beach, the coast, the water started to reach his kever. It was in danger of engulfing his kever. So 3 big rabbis, they made a ta'anit. They said, we're going to move his casket to inland. That way, the water doesn't take the body. Karochi, they fasted. They asked mechila from the body to the goof. They opened up his kever and they moved him. That year, they all died.
Wow.
It's not something simple to move a tzaddik from his grave. Shaul HaMelech, when he just asked Shemuel a question, what did he say? Lama hirgastani alo. Why did you awaken me from my slumber? He was so afraid, Shmuel HaNavi, he broke Moshe Rabbeinu with him. The Gemara says. It's not simple to move a nefesh. This, so you could imagine their fear of moving the Chida. I mean, you're talking about the Chida over here. They open up the body and they see everything is not arranged correctly. So the youngest of Mordechai Eliyahu goes to the body and he says, Marana Chida, Slicha, forgive us. We don't know how to rearrange you. Do it yourself. Look at the emunah. I'm not saying this from a second-hand story. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu says the story himself. Like a thunder in the room, the whole body arranges by itself. The 2 rabbis, Baba Chaki, Rabbi Liniado, faint on the floor. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu was like this. And the thing like that. Like this, he was, like this. And the body was arranged. Obviously, they had to take them to the hospital. They were fainted over there. And they buried him in Har HaMenuchot. And Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, after 120 years, he was buried right next to him. So today, if you go to see the Maran Chida, right next to him, Mamash, is Rav Mordechai. It must be they had some kesher b'shorshei neshamot. There's only other way to explain it is they had some connection in their neshama. It must be they had their roots. Yeah, Mordechai has to be in his roots. So, when did he pass away? He passed away 2007, I want to say 6. Mashu gazeh. I remember that day when he passed away. When he passed away, or Mordechai Eliyahu, when he passed away, it was a couple of months before that they found in the Hezbollah a ship of a huge amount of ballistic missiles. A huge amount. His wife, from Mordechai Eliyahu's wife, the Rabbanit, said that he was going kapara for Klal Yisrael because of if these ballistic missiles would have reached Eretz Yisrael, Chas v'shalom, would have been a korban. This was back then. So there's a lot of times tzaddikim, they're doing things behind the scenes for the sense of the kapara. I mean, so of course there's a limit for all this. One time the piper has to pay. And at that time, like it says in the book of Daniel, Et Sarah Hil Yaakov. It's going to be a Et Sarah Hil Yaakov, and then all the world is going to, what we know as Gog Umagog. Now, before we're going to end our shiur, I want to tell you a couple of sigulot from Maran Chida. And I can tell you a couple of stories about him, but I think we said a couple of interesting stories already. This book that I'm holding in my hand, listen very carefully, I'm not going to repeat myself. This book I'm holding in my hand, was compiled together from a rabbi in Israel called Rav Ohad Turjaman. He's Moroccan. He has an institute that takes all these old writings from the Gnazim and everything of the Sfaradim, and he brings them back to life. So this book has been brought back to life after 800 years. This is the first half. The second half is like 300 years from the Chida. The first half is from Avram Abulafia. He lived in the year 1240.
Wait, if he lived at 300 years ago, how does 800 years ago?
No, the first half of the book is from Avram Abulafia. He brought it back. He wrote it after 800 years. And the second is Maran Chida called Zahav Sagur, the closed gold. The closed gold. Inside this book is basically, Maran Chida had photographic memory. When he was a young man, by the mistake, he ate palador. When he ate palador, it caused him to have photographic memory. And a part of his body got paralyzed. It always comes with a side effect. So Maran Chida, he used to find very rare books in all these kind of libraries. He used to remember them, and he used to write them down. So one of the books that he found in Egypt, because he took upon himself exile, remember? So one of the places where he stopped by was in Egypt. In Egypt, he got an old manuscript of none other than Rabbi Chaim Vital. A personal kuntris that he wrote for himself, full of Kabbalah Ma'asit and Sigulot. Practical Kabbalah and Sigulot, full of it. Sigulot, practical Kabbalah. In this pamphlet, the Chida found, and he said, after I started to learn this book, that night I have a dream of Rav Chaim Vital. In the dream, I ask him a question. And Maran and Rav Chaim Vital gives me a cup of wine, and I drink it. And I wake up from the dream, and I feel all invigorated, and I feel, because it's not easy to go to Galut. Galut is a very painful thing. So this book, I want to tell you some interesting sigulot over here that you might find quite interesting. Number 1, the Chida writes, the first sigula. A sigula that Rabbi Chaim Vital wrote in the name of Rav Hai Gaon, one of the Geonim. Now we're talking 1,200 years ago. Rav Hai Gaon was the last of the Geonim, one of the last Geonim. And he writes, don't ever be in a rush to take out Shabbat. Rav Hai Gaon, don't ever be in a rush to take out Shabbat. Why? How many hours are there in the week if you do 24 times 7? 144.
No.
Come on.
48. 24 times 7?
Yeah.
168.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, so I gotta do the calculation again.
24 times 6.
20.
168,
168?
What is it?
24 times 6.
24 times 6.
Okay, 24 times 6. Okay, 24 times 6 is going to be the 6 days a week, 144.
Yes.
Then the 24 hours of Shabbat are Me'al Hazman. They're Me'al Hazman. But if you add an hour after Shabbat of Rabbeinu time, it's going to be 145. That's Besot Hine Kama Alumati. When Yosef HaTzadik saw his stock be picked up, the stock being picked up, he said, my stock was picked up, and all the other stocks of the Shvatim bow down to him. So if you want to find Chen V'Chesed, if you want to find favor in all your clientele, this, that, keep Shabbat 1 extra hour, add that extra hour to the previous week. Instead of being the 144, it's going to be 145 hours.
You bring it in
You're
earlier?
taking it out. Taking it out an extra hour. That's Besot Hine Kama Alumati.
It's not adding to the Torah?
I said Rabbeinu Tam. You want to do extra Rabbeinu Tam? You can do that too. No, we don't do that. There is actually a sigula to keep Shabbat for an extra couple of hours to connect it. Don't keep Shabbat 25 hours. Keep Shabbat 31 hours. Bichinat Kel. Should be Kel is Aleph Lam, one of God's name of mercy. I don't want to get into that right now. So Rav Hai Gaon brings down, don't take Shabbat out too early, but specifically on Shabbat, it's almost impossible not to do Hilul Shabbat. Almost impossible. By mistake, you blew your nose too hard and the blood came out. You ripped your skin by mistake. You didn't realize. You did borer. You didn't realize. You, I don't know,
touch your
brush your
beard.
teeth. Started to bleed. Touch your beard. Your hair came out. Muktzeh, you touched by mistake. There's always, they get you at something at the end. You know what I'm saying? Don't worry about it. When a person does that, he creates a mazik.
Bad angel.
A certain bad angel, and there's a way to kill him. When Shabbat comes out, when the Chazan says Baruchu et Hashem Mevorach, Sheya'arich oto be'omro Baruch Hashem Mevorach ba'afuke Shabbata. You have to make that Baruchu et Hashem Mevorach very long.
Stretch it.
If you realize the rabbi over here, actually we started to do this many years ago. When we do Baruchu et Hashem Mevorach, to make it a bit long, that making it long kills that mazik that by mistake you did Chilul Shabbat. That's from the
Friday night?
Motzei Shabbat. Motzei Shabbat.
The first Baruch.
The first one. Yeah. Second thing, if a person has a safek in halacha, he's learning Torah. And he has a safek, you gotta love it. And he has a safek in halacha. He has to say this verse, and V'ezrat Hashem, his heart will be opened up to get the Torah.
Answer.
You have to say Yehi Ratzon Milfanecha. I'm telling you guys secret things from the Chida HaKadosh right now. Sar HaSechel, the minister of brains. V'sar HaBinah, and the minister of understanding. Shetishlach, you should send a certain angel. I'm only going to spell out his name. Pei, Taf, Chet, Yud, Aleph, Lamed. You got to think of his name. Hamalach, Shiva'er Safek Ze V'yatzliach. That he should explain to me, this angel, this doubt, and Bezrat Hashem, you will have Hatzlacha.
Wow. Only in Torah.
Kabbalah Ma'aseh. Obviously, you're not going to do it in the middle of a test.
No, it's not.
It's a question. Boom, everything is there. No, it doesn't work like that. I know, we can't say the names of angels.
The professor might faint.
The professor, angels from the outfield. No. Leptichat halev, to open up your heart in Torah. To open up your heart in Torah. Abraham, this is for you.
Not for lottery tickets.
No. You have to read the letter Mem, in the 119th chapter of Tehillim 40 times.
For what? It's broken
In
down
chapter
into
119 of
alphabetical
Tehillim
order.
is broken down in alphabetical order. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dal. The letter
For
Mem,
what?
40 times.
40 times.
For what is this?
It's 8 sentences. It starts with Ma Hafti Toratecha Kol Hayom Hi Sichati. You have to say it 40 times,
It's only five.
and it's gonna open up.
It's only 5 words.
No, it's 8 sentences with 5 words.
Open up what?
Open up your heart for the Torah. See, sometimes when you learn Torah, you have that heavy feeling. Like you just can't. You can't just let it get heavy. The cups of coffee don't work. Nothing works. So, Zat Hashem, these segulot open up your heart for the Torah. One more segula.
Hey, you. Spokojnie.
Please.
One more segula. He's excited. It's okay.
Talk later.
Tov lomar. It's good to say every day before or after Shacharit, 7 times in a row in one breath, or many times in the same breath. Eliyahu Hanavi. Just say Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hanavi. 7 times or as many times as possible in one breath. Tov lezikaron. It's good to have memory. Tichat halev. Opening of the heart for the Torah. Ulekol hatzlacha tova.
Very nice. That's an easy one. That's a
easy
good
one.
one. That's a one time.
Let's start
How
with
many
that.
times?
What's the last one?
Сколько ты можешь за один?
Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi. Yes. No, Eliyahu Hanavi it says. Last one. And this is something that I try to do when I'm Chazan. This Sigula I'm about to say is also brought down by Rabbi Eliyahu HaItamari. Baal HaShevet Musar. He was one of the Rabbanei Izmir, maybe one of the greatest Rabbanim of Izmir, Turkey. Before you start davening, especially for the Chazan, it's good to say this pasuk 10 times in a row. V'noach matzachen b'nei Elohim v'adam. And Noah found favor in the eyes of Lord and man. It's good. I try to say when I'm Chazan.
Say it again. Say it
V'noach matzachen b'nei Elohim v'adam. V'noach b'nei Elohim. It says b'nei Elohim v'adam.
You have to say with the hey?
Yeah, obviously. You say that, but it's a pasuk from the Torah. It's good to say this pasuk. This pasuk is also good for tikkun habrit.
Wow.
For tikkun habrit, yes. Because Noach is bechinat yesod de'imah. Now I'm going to tell you one last thing. This is from his book Midbar Kedemot, from Torah. His Hilula today. We got to learn his Torah. This is his book Midbar Kedemot, one of my favorites. Over here he talks about the people from the tribe of Benjamin that were werewolves. Yeah, Bukharians, yeah. Simcha. This is broken down by alphabetical order of this book's alphabetical order of ideas. Simcha. What does he have to say about Simcha? What's Simcha? Happiness.
That was Adar, bro.
Where does guy a glass, please? Kishe'osek b'Torah, when you learn Torah, o mitzvah, or a mitzvah, o tefillah, tzarich sheyeh sameach me'od. You have to be very happy. Yoter ma'asher herviach o motzeh, more than if you would have earned or found. Elef alfei alafim dinarei zahav, tens of thousands of golden coins. Ukshe'osek b'Torah o mitzvah, yeh b'cheshek. You have to learn Torah with cheshek. You know what cheshek means?
Desire?
Desire, like you're eating. You're like, you know, when you eat a nice lahavdil meat, piece of meat, or the chamin on Shabbat, you eat it with cheshek. Ubithalvut. You know what bitlahavut means? Hitlahavut is with excitement. Atzum ubazeh yizkeh leruach hakodesh. And this is one of the steps of getting ruach hakodesh.
Would you do it mitzvah bitlavut?
Yes, this is one of my favorites. Sachar sachir, paying a person. You have a worker and you pay him.
On the top.
Sigulat mitzvah zo, there's a sigula on paying a person on time. You should know one thing, a person who doesn't pay his worker on time could go over up to 4 averot in the Torah. 4 averot in the Torah. Because this mitzvah is brought down in 4 different ways in the Torah. 2 mitzvot aseh, 2 mitzvot lo ta'aseh. So a person, what's the sigula of paying a person on time? What's the sigula?
Long life.
Any day of the week. Sigula shel mitzvah. So every mitzvah also has a kind of like a good kickback. The sigula of this mitzvah, any day of the week, she'oseh et mitzvah azot ketikuna, correctly, zoche letosefet neshama be'oto Shabbat. You will be zoche for an extra soul that Shabbat.
Extra good soul.
Obviously, extra good soul. Midah keneged midah. Because you helped that guy's neshama, you gave that guy's neshama an uplifting. When you pay a guy his fee, you give him happiness, Hashem will uplift your neshama in Shabbat. V'notnim lo neshama yetera. They give you an extra neshama. V'zen nirma on time. V'zen nirmaz bereshet tevot of the pasuk. Beyomo, what's the first letter of Beyomo? Bet. Titen, Tav. Scharo, Shin. Shin, Bet, Tav, Shabbat. On the day you give him his Sachar, Rashit Tevot Shabbat, you're going to get your Tosefet Neshama in the name of the Ari HaKadosh. Now there's a much more I could teach you guys from the Maran Chida HaKadosh. Much to say. A lot of beautiful things over here. We talked a lot of interesting things. So I want to tell you guys that tonight, don't waste it. It's a very holy night. If you're going to be up at Tikkun Chatzot, do Tikkun Chatzot. Say a couple of Pirkei Tehillim. Pray for the Rosh Yeshiva of Laman Achai, of Shmuel Zalman ben Hana, Yeshav Refuah Shlema. Also for Rafael Edzik ben Nina. He's also in a very bad condition in Israel. A lot of people are suffering, Rabotai. We cannot be selfish. We have to daven for them. And you were answered first. I also want to say that Baruch Hashem, that Purim is coming. And Purim, the first letters of Purim are what? Pei, Vav, Resh. Or Pru. Pru or Vu. Person who wants to get married, wants Shalom Bait Bezugiyut. Pru or Vu. His Segula is Purim. It's Purim. He has to use Purim is 24 hours, that a light that is open in the Olamot Elyonim. It's a light. It's called Ateret Mordechai. It's Ateret the Yesod Abba. I can't explain you the Kabbalistic thoughts of it. It's such a high power in the Olamot Elyonim that's only opened up once a year. Only once a year. And this year in Israel, it's going to be open for 3 days. Rabbi Isai. Purim Mishulash. So let's not waste this day on Mishloach Manot. I'm sorry to say this. One guy I met last year, I met him at the end of the day. By Mincha. What, did you do your Seudah yet? No, my wife made me crazy. We're still doing Mishloach Manot. Are you nuts? Put it in the FedEx or something. Are you kidding me? What Mishloach Manot? Mishloach Manot you give to one person. Mishloach Manot ish lereu matanot le'evyonim. Seudat Purim is the main thing. Seudah. You gotta do the Seudah. Of course, this year you have to do it responsibly, obviously. But Rabbi, don't waste this day. Finish Tehillim, daven to Hashem. Even in the drunkenness, is the Kedusha on that day. But you have to know who to get drunk with. Some people, like the Gemara says, like Achashverosh and his friends, they get drunk, and what do they start talking about? But some people, when they drink, they do Kedusha, they feel Kedusha, they start talking about mitzvot, they want to do things, Kedusha, Devim Tovim. So don't waste this day. This also needs Siyata Deshmaya. You have to daven to Hashem, that you should be put in the right place with the right people, in the right crowd on Purim, that Hashem should be mishalot libcha letova u'livracha. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Hanam ben Akashia Omer.